Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hi,
Dice Jailers. I'm Jordan,
I'm Bjorn.
and we have a very special guest today.
I'm Dana.
Uh,
Am I?
are you? Last time I checked, you were. Has that changed?
Sure.
Cool. So this
If you're
week,
not, that's good too. Oh,
this week, we're gonna talk about things that you can bring into your games to increase the immersion a bit. Uh,
yes.
but before we get into all of that, a
Mhm.
few announcements for the week, and also, how you been, Bjorn?
Pretty damn good. It's been a somewhat eventful week. Just working on various shit. Realizing how much, not realizing, reminding myself how much I hate cutting scripts, and yet here I am cutting scripts. But I'm getting close to the end of that, and then once that's done, I can move on to the more fun part of things. So yeah, that is fantastic. Um, if this is well, you'll get to your announcement here. This is a pre-announcement following yours, where I have picked our one shot for June.
Yay, yay! It's gonna be
It's going to be
great.
all bards.
It's the Battle of the Bards, baby!
It's going to be amazing, and yeah, and once I figure out what parts of it I'm going to cut out to fit into a 3.5-ish hour slot,
Yep,
I think I know what day I want to do it on. I'll run that by you later,
word.
and if that works, then we'll get some people, and it will be bardtastic, and I'm so excited.
It's
How
gonna
about
be
you?
so
What's
great.
good?
I don't think you've never seen me play a bard, have you?
Oh
No, I
God.
haven't. I know you can't multi-class and only take one level in Bard. If you're gonna multi-class, most
Oh,
your build have to be a Bard.
no. If I'm gonna bard, I'm gonna bard.
What college are you gonna take?
Uh, I mean, that's a coin flip.
Okay.
But maybe College of Swords just because it's not
Just
great.
because it sucks, so why not put yourself at a disadvantage?
Exactly. Uh,
Or you could be a Valor Bard instead, and not just
and do basically the same, but
only
better.
better. Yeah,
Agents of Chaos.
Damn right. That's I'll bring in my ace tiefling bard. It'll be great.
I'm for it. I'm absolutely for it. Please bring an Ace Bard into this, because at least one person needs to, and it's just an extra layer of fun dynamic.
Absolutely.
But anyways, enough about what we're not talking about today. We're actually talking about what's good with you, man. What's going on?
I've been good. It's a good week. I've had a good amount of fun.
Okay.
Some relaxation after last weekend's ridiculousness.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yep, yep. Robot Party Week went as Robot Party Week does.
Now,
Uh,
is that partying with robots? Is that robots partying? Um,
all of the above.
you're gonna have to enlighten me on this.
Well, you see, I am a party machine.
I agree with this. I
Yep.
have witnessed.
Yeah, I saved that one just because I knew you're on stream. Because
Hate this
a
one.
thing a thing that none of you know is that most of our friendship lately subsists of me telling terrible dad jokes and Dana making that face. It's wonderful.
And yet you make that face at me when I make dad jokes. So
Yep.
um,
Well, because here we can try and out dad each other, but
Oh God.
you're
Why did
not
I
going to be able to out dad
come?
me.
to quote one Mr. Mercer, you can certainly try.
But yeah, the week was fun. I got into a lot of shenanigans, and
Good.
I got ready for the proper announcement to give, which our one shot for this month for May
Yeah,
that I will be DMing. We'll be doing that this Sunday. If I remember my notes correctly, we are starting at 5 p.m. on Sunday.
that
It'll
we
be
are.
great. It is all pirate themed, so get ready to get salty.
I am so looking forward to this.
It's gonna be super
Uh,
fun.
Thrilled to actually be a player. The
Mm-hmm.
first
Mm-hmm.
chance to play. This is exciting.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And that will come off of this weekend. Actually, later tonight, I'm going and getting together with my friends whose wedding I'm officiating this summer,
Nice.
and we're gonna have a little do a little bit of event planning and then a good amount of celebration barbecuing,
As it
which would be
should be.
great.
Ooh, what's getting cooked?
That's a good question. All I know is there are a lot of meats being smoked.
That's that's all that matters, is that there is plentiful amount of protein. That is
I am the Lord.
This is really why I wanted you to be on the show, is just for you reacting, thinking that I'm not like this with everyone else.
oh,
No,
all
I
the
know.
time.
I know this is just how you are.
This is what we love about Jordan, is he has two settings. He has extra and extra extra. Like
That is very true.
that's it.
Yet somehow I don't own a fan yet.
Yet.
Gotta get you one.
I mean, I would get a big thwart fan, but then I'd be moving in on Jamie's territory.
You would. You
And
would. That
mine.
woman owns many fans.
But fans are great things for Jamie's bard to use as a prop while we're playing.
Yes, things that can help enhance your game experience, either for you yourself as a player or for the other people at the table, or if you're lucky enough to, having an audience to get that extra buy-in.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about all this week, is
Yes.
added things that you can bring in to help make it more real.
Immersion is, I think, extremely important within not just D&D, but any role-playing game.
Pick a tabletop game, yeah.
Yeah, the key words here is role playing. You're playing a role. It's right there on the front of the player's handbook. You see it down at the bottom. It talks about it. And I don't think you need to be a performer or anybody with any sort of performing background to
No.
immerse yourself in your character. Because that's kind of where I personally want to start.
And that's a big thing, that like a block that a lot of first time players hit, is they're like, well, I'm not an actor, I can't do a bunch of different silly voices, so
yeah, and they get scared of it. It's the voices in particular that scare them. You've probably
and I'll admit
go ahead.
I'll admit that voices are one of my personal favorite ways to get characters to feel a little bit more real and get new players into it. But the thing that always catches people is, well, like, I can't do any accents. You don't need to do one.
Right.
Something as simple as like just changing the pace of your speech, or bumping your voice up, like not even a full octave, but just a couple notes even.
Yeah. I mean, I think the popularity of Critical Role in particular has been wonderful for D&D, because it's brought in so many people. They're seeing it. They're like, oh, wow, this is what it's like. This is so cool. But because it's a bunch of professional voice actors doing it, certain people, who don't have that performing background can get very intimidated by the idea of doing a character. And I love what you're saying of making some very minor changes. I think it's possible to get fully immersed in your character without doing any sort of acting at all. And I'm a big fan of Matthew Perkins and his series of videos on YouTube. And he actually had one where he talked about how to role play without acting. And honestly, all it takes is just a little time with a thesaurus to just come up with interesting words.
Totally.
Instead of saying, my character walks over with his axe and attacks the orc. Well, think about how your character walks. So you could say that they, aggressively thunder towards the orc, letting out a battle cry, and they swing their blade, hoping for a killing blow. I mean, that's imagery, and it's evocative, and you can really help get the other people at your table more invested in the game based on how you describe things.
100%. Just getting a little bit of flair into describing what you do helps so much. I don't remember. I don't know if you remember when we did our one shot.
I do. Very vividly.
With just how Anthea described
everything. That was so interesting.
Well, I mean, because Anthea is an amazing writer and performer, so I mean that helped.
And listening to her, and then also like getting into Critical Role, and especially like listening to Liam O'Brien and the way he describes every single time he casts a spell as Caleb, it like made me think, it was like, oh, I can get into this, and I can get a little ham with it.
Right.
I love what Dana's saying there about talking about Liam's spells in particular, thinking about all the information within the player's handbook. If you are a spellcaster that uses material components, read what those components are, and then think about what the tactile feeling of those things would be in your hand. Or
I just always remember the molasses.
Yeah, and if you're like me and you're playing a barbarian, just think about what a big, heavy axe feels like to swing, and
attractive. That's how it
feels. Oh man, great axes. But Google image
Mm.
search two-handed axes. Look at the way that the handles are made. Are they leather wrapped?
You might want to safe search two-handed axes, though.
You know what I say? Don't. No. Just go all in. Like, what you should do is you got to turn safe search off, because that's what gives you super search, and just look up big two-handed club.
That's not good. That's not. Don't we get
as
it's 34 and
34?
Yeah, it's rule 34 of the internet, and
it's one of them.
As a channel, officially, we do not endorse this.
Yeah.
No. I don't
In fact,
endorse it either, because
you want to look up big girthy club.
Oh.
Nope, don't. Nope, that's even worse.
That's not how that works. Because I was thinking about not a lot of people use the great club, but if you do, that is wood with massive girth to it. So
it is.
That also has a lot of heft to it, like depending on how you swing it.
Yeah.
Can do a lot of damage.
You certainly can if you know how to use it.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
I mean, it's the same with any kind of weapon.
I mean, you're not wrong.
It's all about how you use it.
Is it worth it? Can you work it? Put that thing down.
Stop. Okay. Good.
Flip it and
stop it.
Reverse it.
Reverse it.
It's too much time spent on that.
No, just the right amount of time.
Yeah. And when you talk like that, that means you probably should play a bard.
Absolutely.
Come see us this June for the All Bards one shot. We'll tell you when soon. That's how you self-promote. But yeah, no, I think the importance in how you describe things as any player, or particularly as the DM, is very important. This game is collaborative storytelling. That's what we're all really doing together. And if your DM tells you leave the woods, come out of a clearing, and see a lake, all right, that's okay. But again, go into the details of what is the sound of like twigs snapping underneath the party's feet as they're coming out of these woods, or maybe
are there birds?
Yeah, give us an idea of the weather, the time of day, what the temperature feels like.
If you're in a marsh, have a whole lot of fun doing onomatopoeias for the schlorp sounds of their boots in the mud.
And if you give a little bit of fuel to your players, they'll run with it. If you talk about how their boots are kind of getting stuck in that mud and it's taking them a little bit of effort to pull out of there, have fun and make one of them make a strength check. Just because. Maybe all your players dump strength, like almost all of mine did. Make them make strength checks. It's fun. It's great. But then you will have the characters interacting with each other about this muck. And once you can get the buy-in for the environment, the combat buy-in becomes easy. That's
very much so.
Easiest part.
And I think another tool that you can throw in, especially, I mean, this is pretty much a DM only tool to throw in to help with the immersion. And honestly, if you're DMing, your players are going to be looking for you to set the tone of like,
they are.
All right, how much are we doing? Are you showing up in fucking costume? Or like, which if you have like one little costume piece or a prop that you like already have on you, that's a super great way to bring in just a little bit of your character's flair, just to be there, you know? Like, Jamie has the Thwarp fan that my artificer ended up in-game making, like, a bladed fan to use as a weapon.
Yeah.
Because why not?
You know, and as far as, like, having physical props, a lot of that can come down to creativity and budget. If you can make props, that's great. You could do something as simple as printing off images from the internet and handing those out to players during the game.
Or if you're a DM with a printer, make handouts, because it's not that much effort, but it helps so much. Like, print out a map. Like,
it's
if
incredible.
yeah, if one of your things has to, and obviously this is easier when we're not playing just on screens, but
when we're on screen, you can drop those maps in the chat, like
mm-hmm.
have those images. Or what's been great about, we've been running our campaign on Zoom for a good year now, and we've made judicious use of Roll20 and how useful that is to have a visual representation of what these battles look like, because it was way more fun being around a table with maps and minis and all that,
and being able to throw things at Nate.
Yeah, but I think well, I mean, you were also trying to throw it into Nate, which is fair, because you have the best bromance ever. Like,
if there's gonna be popcorn, it's gonna get thrown into a mouth.
Yeah. But
no, for once it's not a euphemism. It's
for
just...
once. But having those physical props are incredible. Now, if you're a DM with a huge budget, I say go all out, go on Beetle and Grimm, buy those legendary editions they sell. They're incredible. I'm lucky enough that a DM I often get to play with, he used to be a game reviewer, and because of his history doing that, just got sent some of those by the company. They're like, hey, here you go. Thanks for those reviews you did for us. And I can say the games, like when we played Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and when the item, the badge of the watch, when he reached from behind his screen and handed that to one of our players and goes, okay, as long as you have that. When he was able to put the cards up over his DM screen that showed the depiction of what we were fighting. And then, he explained to us that on the backside, it had handy, reference information for him.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Now, if you're a DM on a budget, don't go, well, I mean, I can't afford the $400 yet. Neither can I. But like you said,
grid
Jordan,
paper is your friend.
Yeah, just print some stuff out. If you're saying, well, I can't really afford minis, if you're able to gather in person, another campaign that I played in for a short time, our DM, all of his monsters were snack food. They were all edible. If you got the killing blow, you got to eat it. So we had a visual representation of the battle, and I'll tell you what, my immersion was not broken just because I got a peanut butter filled pretzel when I killed a monster. I'm a whore for peanut butter filled pretzels. I won't lie.
I mean, unless you're allergic to them, who isn't? I know,
but I think having anything to just add to the game will always increase that level of immersion. But
I think with the peanut butter pretzels, I think a good note to think about is that it doesn't have to be like this perfect representation, whatever, to be immersive. It just has to be something to get you focused more on the game than on thinking about everything outside of the game, which is infinitely more difficult to do when we're playing online because you have your computer right there. And why am I not playing Bubble Trouble while this section of the campaign goes on that I'm not a part of?
I think another thing for players, and this is not so much increasing immersion, but it's helping not break immersion, is paying attention is huge. Few things will break the immersion more in a combat than when it gets to somebody's turn and they go looking up from their phone. Wait, what's going on?
Huh? What? Sorry.
Yeah. The only time that doesn't break the immersion is, guys, okay, fill me in. I'm trying to find my spell here. I'm trying to find the spell I want to cast. And it's like, okay, you're looking up a thing that's relevant to here. But, I mean, keep the game moving.
Yeah.
Don't be... we've not touched on this specifically, but we've kind of hinted at it. Don't be afraid to make not maybe the wrong or even not the best decision. Did the spell you throw down not be the most helpful thing? Oh well, it'll make a great story later.
Yep.
If you keep it moving.
since we mentioned Critical Role so much, like when Liam had Caleb throw down that disintegrate at what's its name, the big pretending to be a god on the island, that had that had spell reflection.
Yeah, and it was, oh no, this might kill a party member.
because he straight up forgot that there was spell reflection. And sometimes that happens, and don't be afraid of it. Just like, yep, I would cast Disintegrate here, so let's see what happens. And now, Bjorn and I, we come at this from a very DM heavy brain because we DM a lot. But Dana, as more of a player, is there anything in particular that you like to do that really helps you like stay in with your character?
I mean, everything that you two have been talking about helps. Something that I didn't realize I would actually kind of like, and I don't know if you two were planning on talking about this later, it's just kind of like background noise and background music.
Yep.
Like, not to the point where, like, that's all you can focus on, but it, wait, also just coming from, because I'm also a theater person, that's how Jordan and I know each other, and I can't tell you, like, how much of a difference, like, the right sound design makes, especially when you're getting closer and closer to the opening of a performance, and it just, for me personally, really helps me click in to my own performance, and my buy-in is just like that much more. It's just that much more easy to shift into.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm so glad you said that. The talking about sound and music. And you're right, it shouldn't be overriding everything else.
No.
But if you're playing, say, Curse of Strahd, and there are sound effects of maybe thunder in the distance or wolves howling.
See, Curse of Strahd is one of the easiest ones because you can just grab like any Halloween noise CD and you're probably
for the
right.
Most part, like a dark cave with like the little drip noises in there.
And sometimes it can help just to know your players and what's going to get them going. Because for the music for the biggest boss battle we have done in the campaign I'm running that Jordan's in, a fight that was over 2 years in the making. I went,
motherfucking fight.
My friends are nerds. They've played the Final Fantasy games. So I took Jecht's theme from Final Fantasy X, which is loud, metal, intense, and that was playing for all 2.5 hours of the battle.
God, that was such a long shit. Oh yeah, it was a long ass fight.
But I can also say about that fight, nobody felt like it dragged. Everyone was quick on their turns. Really? Everything was happening. It was the greatest combat I've ever been a part of. And
you know why that fight didn't drag is because we were all scared.
Well, I mean, we were scared for good reason. It opened with a meteor swarm that none of you succeeded to save on, even the monk. So you were at best at half hit points when it began. And so you were on the defensive the whole time. There was this intense music playing. And then when the dust finally settled, we had maybe 20 minutes left of the session before we wrapped up. It was an amazing combat, and I can't believe one that ran that long was that good. But there were a lot of emotional touchstones being pulled on because of the campaign.
And that combat ran long because, much like Matthew Mercer, you forgot that Sphere of Invulnerability does not move.
And I will say this, I've said it before, I will say it again. I'm so glad. Like, I felt better about myself when they messed that up twice on Critical Role, because Sphere of Invulnerability, the first sentence says an immobile.
Yep.
That's how it starts. It's the second word.
The second word.
And I had my wizard flying around with his 8th level globe of invulnerability around him. And but it was a great combat, and you know what? Who cares? We all make mistakes sometimes. But again, like talking on the immersion, taking advantage of the fact that you guys were emotionally invested in the story, that this had been a continual antagonist playing intense music that all I had to do was look it up on Spotify, hit play, hit repeat. It's like, okay, we got the music going until this is done. And we used Roll20 with a just very simple map. It was just a round room. That was it. But everybody was completely in the moment. And so I think part of it, if you're a DM, is knowing your players, knowing what's gonna get them interested.
I mean, if they're nerds, Final Fantasy all the way.
Do it.
If your player is Dana, play the National.
This interview is over.
Dana's never coming on the show again.
You'll be hearing from my lawyers.
But like it's an important point, and the greatest thing about music, especially if you're not, I don't know, choosing to stream, is that it's so easy to have that set up and have completely free usable sources for it, because you can just just YouTube queue of it, or hit songs on repeat on like Spotify or Pandora, or I know on Critical Role they use Sirenscape, which has like its own app and everything, which I relatively enjoy. They're not a sponsor, but quite enjoy them.
Oh, they're great. I mean, using Spotify for our music in the game, I have destroyed my algorithms.
Oh, Spotify. Absolutely.
It recommends nothing but video game music now, just because of how much I've used Pillars to Eternity and The Witcher. I use them both a ton.
Yeah, and music-wise, if you want to get a really, really good chase scene, like a chase scene skill competition out of your players,
play Yakety Sax.
Not what I was thinking, but also yes. The opening.
Yes. Can confirm.
The opening to Sonic Adventure 2: Escape from the City.
No, God.
Absolutely yes.
Oh, God.
Hands down, best openings and best opening music to a game.
That's very subjective.
That's what you do, is you find things that work. Honestly, I would consider just putting Kenny Loggett's Danger Zone on repeat. Just,
Also, yes.
Yeah.
And like with music, it does not, as we've mentioned in jokes, it doesn't have to be just your standard, like, all right, here's some tavern noise for a few hours. Here's some cave noise. Like, it can be some ridiculous, like, hey, look, this moment's gonna feel like we're in an action movie. And as long as you as the DM buy into it, you're like, yep, this is what we're doing. Your players will get down with it.
And, obviously, if you're streaming your game, that changes things a lot, because now you have to worry about licensing and whatnot. But I think the rise of 5th edition D&D, as much as it is, has also been great in that aspect, because there are so many services that either A, offer free sound effects, you can find them, where they say, hey, use them all you want, or are very inexpensive subscription based. Like, you can get some of them, and it depends on whether you're live streaming or whether you're doing the sound effects in post-production editing as opposed to what you want. But then that's where you need to think about which immersion are you more focused on, the player immersion in the game or your audience immersion. And if you are going to stream, you have to think about the audience immersion, because no matter how entertaining your game of D&D is to you, you got to have a little extra for the viewer or listener if it's going to be interesting to them.
Yeah, and I think a lot that can help with that for like viewers for a stream show is a thing that we haven't done on our stream yet, because I'm not good at editing for a stream yet, because
we'll get there.
It's just me here, baby. But having extra information on the screen about the player's characters or about the map or about the setting is huge to help keep an audience clued in, because like there's gonna be times that someone's looking for a spell and the audience is gonna be like, so what should I look at? Oh, that box in the corner that has the map. All right, where are they on the map? Oh yeah, it's there. Just for a little something.
Like, think about things that entertain you as the viewer. like you just said, if you're doing any of the editing and post-production, I think that's a real gift. Obviously, you could edit out the time that player was looking for the spell, or you could go VH1 pop-up video style, and you could have a fact about that player or about their character, or you could make fun of them for looking for their spell.
I now want to no longer do our hopeful future campaign live, but just in post, so that I can do those.
I don't think we should do it live. I think we should do it in post. I think we should record it live and post it up in segments like we talked about.
Yeah.
I would love to do that post stuff.
I mean, but if we did that, then I would have to learn actual real editing.
How about this? I'll buy a bottle of whiskey. We're both vaccinated, and we'll learn it together.
I can co-sign with that.
I'm in. Well, let's learn how to do it. You heard it on here first. We're gonna figure out how to do it.
Dana, did you what'd you mumble?
A tiny bit of basic editing.
Did we find an assistant editor?
It depends on like how much you want to throw in there.
We're negotiable.
Late 90s MTV.
Credit can't help you.
Mid-90s,
That's a special talent. That's a special.
Or can we go early 90s MTV? Because then that was when I was still familiar with it.
I would love to. Unfortunately, I do not have that skill set.
Yeah, well. Yeah.
Or the software.
Yeah, that's fine. That's why getting the software, you should definitely jump on the chat in our Twitch and say things, and on our YouTube, definitely subscribe and say things.
Never speak up. No, I'm figuring this out.
Yeah. That's how you get signed up for things, Dana.
But you know what the thing is? That just shows, like, these words just came out of your mouth because you were immersed in this experience.
If this like particular corner wasn't so hard to get up out of right now, I would get up.
Yeah. Note, I let you choose which chair you wanted to be in, and you picked the difficult one.
I wasn't thinking.
You didn't think you were going to need an
escape with my vanity.
You didn't think that you needed an escape from this shenanigans.
It's too late now.
Yep.
You watched it go. You knew what to expect. That's how it is. I think this is a little immersive thing. And you can tell me, Jordan, if you agree with this or not, and Dana, because you're also a player, I'd love for you to weigh in. For me, I have to have the right dice for my character.
Oh, yep. Like
I can't.
You were just talking
about. We were talking about this before the show.
Now, I own quite a few dice. I don't own anywhere near as many as you, Jordan. You friggin' goblin.
Yes, I am. Let's see. There's that bag.
He has
that crown royal bag there. That bag there. I've got some more in a drawer over there. Yeah. And then there's some in that bag there.
Have you actually seen in real life, Bjorn? Have you seen like how, like an approximation?
I haven't seen all of them, but what I have seen is when he used to come to my apartment for sessions, is him take this, what I can only describe as a hefty bag, and dump it out into what most, I use a rolling tray. He has his leveled out cauldron as he just dumps out this literal avalanche of click-clack math rocks, and then tries to figure out which ones are going to go to dice jail and which can be played with.
Yep.
And I'm looking, going, where the Sam Hill are you going to roll these things? Because you've already filled your entire rolling area, which I would compare to the Roman Colosseum.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Massive.
I am our game's Laura Bailey.
I mean, I would say you are, except you're not that pretty. We don't have,
Okay, true, yeah. Rude, true.
Yeah, I'm just we don't have that kind of help for you. Just can't. I'm not saying you're not pretty. I'm saying you're not that pretty.
I never will be.
No one will, Laura.
America's sweetheart, Laura fucking Bailey.
Right. And speaking of Laura Bailey, it does help to have for your immersion, it helps to have someone else of that caliber of acting at the table doing what they do best. It helps
Yeah.
so much when you have someone else to like go off
That's
of.
another thing I would have mentioned too, is like just at least having one other person at the table or in the session that when you have like like when you're in RP mode and you're having a conversation with this character, it's so fun. It's like sometimes it's more fun than any acting job I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because it seems it feels a little more authentic because you are stepping into somebody else into a character, but at the same time you don't have a script.
And that's the beauty. You have no idea
right
what
off
your
the bat
partner is going to say to you, and you don't always know what you're going to say.
No,
sure don't.
No. Yeah. I will say the one shot we did last spring. I fucking loved it because I felt like every single person in the party was like that. Mm-hmm. I as my character could have a conversation with any other character, with any other player, and just have like the best time and just like nom like it was so good. It was like chewing the scenery. It was so good.
And that is important to have people at the table who are willing to go there with their character. Oh, yeah. If it's whether it's with voice or just intensity of speech or even in description, because once people start doing it, you make it safe for everyone else at
exactly
the table.
Yeah.
And I think even the level of immersion and the level of acting, it may be a thing worth bringing up in a session 0. Because you don't know how comfortable everyone's going to be at the table. I think there's nothing wrong with running a one shot for a group of newbies. The more people play, the happier I am. I want everyone to get to experience this game that I love
because it's so fun.
It is. I honestly don't understand why everyone doesn't play D&D. I really
because
don't
math.
You know what? You can get around that. You can get around that. We should do an episode on ways to avoid the math because
that would be a very short episode because 2 things.
Go.
Digital apps and a calculator.
No. I've got far more ways. We'll talk about that another time because I have so many ideas on how you can remove massive amounts of the math from the game and still have an incredible experience. And this works great with both inexperienced and with younger players as well.
Yes.
To help get them invested. But when you have a group of all newbies, none of them have played D&D, I think if none of them have played before, it's important to know how comfortable they are with the role-playing aspect. Because if none of them have played, and if all of them are a little iffy on that, find your friend who is not uncomfortable with role-playing and who has played to sort of be your ringer. And don't make them the star of the game because you'll disappoint the others, but allow them to show what is possible. Have them interact with a tavern owner, and then they can be the one to call out to another player and say, can you hear what this person's saying? Like, do you believe this? And help
them to pull them into the scene.
Yeah. And then if Bjorn's your DM, that dwarven tavern owner will sound like,
there's only the one way they're going to say it. It's always the thing I do. And I'm not ashamed of it because I have fun.
Your dwarven tavern owners are Nurse Joy.
And so that's one way to use, like, say, your ringer, or have them describe these incredibly intricate things they're doing in combat, about how they want to flip through the air as they attack. Because again, you'll then have other players who are new going like, oh wait, I can do that. I thought I just like swung my sword at stuff. So wait, I can like leap off the back of this party member and try and stab it in the eye. And as a DM, you're like, well,
rule of cool, baby.
Try.
And I think that is a really big thing, especially with new players, is like when you're trying to get immersed into the game, it's figuring out what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because so many things, especially in like the description, in the role playing, and the getting into character with new players, so much of it is like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Like,
yeah,
we can just, you mean we can just hang out in the tavern as characters and that's fine? Like, yeah, there'll probably be a fight to move the story along eventually,
yeah.
but
like when you're working with new players as a DM, understand there's a little more hand holding, and sometimes, and I know this is a dreaded word for some people, railroading that will happen sometimes. It's okay to railroad sometimes.
I hate that in the tabletop community that railroading is such a like 4-letter word.
Yeah, because sometimes it's necessary, because either A, maybe you didn't drop enough clues of what your players should go do next, and they're sitting there confused. And you as the DM are like, well, I want the story to move forward, but they're not doing anything. Sometimes you just have to have, this NPC that just gives them the information of like, oh, hey, church is on fire. And
so, oh, you mentioning a quest about church being on fire. So I know, weird thing for my brain to 6 degrees of separation onto, but when you're playing in person, lighting, because my thoughts went to church on fire, fire, candle. If you have a bunch of candles and you're playing in person, playing by candlelight, as assuming that you have enough candlelight to be able to see your sheets and whatnot.
Or fake candles.
Fake, or like the little
fake tea lights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fake tea lights are amazing.
It's a super cheap, it's a super inexpensive way to just bump that immersion up a little bit.
It's so effective.
Exactly. And especially if you get like particular scented candles and you swap out candles for different like areas that you're in. I've seen one DM do that before, and it is redonkulous.
There is a great company called Cantrip Candles. They're
amazing.
Buy them. They're great. They're a small business and they're really cool. They sell their stuff down here at Outsider Comics in Fremont, which is just a couple blocks away from me. And that's where I bought all my Cantrip Candles from. But yeah, like smells and anything visual.
I didn't even think about incorporating scent into the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the great thing about like Cantrip Candles, they have they're named for the area they would smell like. Like they have one for, it's supposed to be like a pleasant town and it smells like freshly baked bread. And they have one that's called like Dungeon Depths, and it smells a little musty, but not in a bad way somehow. Like you get sort of this like wet, mossy smell from it. They have one that's, I think it's just called like Sanctuary, and it literally smells like books. Like you could feel like you were in a wizard's study with this smell being added to the air.
Again, not a sponsor, but we love them.
I love Cantrip Candles. The only thing I will say to anybody watching, if you go on their site and you see one you want, buy it now, because their stuff sells out so fast. They make it in very small batches. I've seen it where people have been asking, oh, when is this going to come out? When is this going to come out? And it gets released and then it's gone within a day.
Yep. There's a reason I don't have any right now is because they always are sold out.
Well, the reason I don't have any right now is, I buy them and then I end up using them, and I go to get them again and they're not there.
Yep. Because it's a good product that everyone wants.
It is. I will jump on a very fun way to do immersion as a DM. And you have to know your players well enough for this, because you can scare off somebody who is super resistant.
I think I know what you're about to say.
And that is grabbing them, or like full on Scorpion, get over here into role play of just looking right at them across the table and doing your NPC voice of like, yeah, I'm talking to you. What do you think about that? Mm-hmm. And if they start, talking to other people at the table, like, oh guys, what do you think I can say? You're like, I'm standing right here. I can hear what you're saying. Like you can force them to engage in that moment. Don't do that to somebody that's going to find that really off-putting. Like, if you know that's going to...
that can be tricky, I think.
Yeah, that's where I say you have to know your players well enough.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who are going to go, yeah, let's do this. Okay, I'm ready. And there are others who that's going to cause them to recoil more. So I say use that very delicately. But if you know that's going to bring somebody in, one, that can be a great way to do it. And two, if you already have those players who are immersive, it's a great way to kill crosstalk.
Oh, yeah.
When they try and ask advice from a player who's not in that scene, just talk about how you can hear what they're saying and you can't figure out who they're talking to because you and them are the only two people there.
Yep. And that's one of the big reasons why I love things that increase immersion in tabletop games, is because when you're right there in the moment, in character, just like there with someone else, you don't have the time to think about metagaming because, well, we're just at this war table for I just got thrown in with this group of adventurers and I don't really know what I'm doing.
So it's just like the idea of that, like, I feel like I'm at a point in my gaming experience that I would be all for that kind of thing of the DM just reaching out and being like, I'm talking to you directly. Don't like don't talk to them. Who are you talking to? Like, I'm asking you a question. I feel like I would be able to jump right in at this point, but also I'm having Meisner flash.
Oh no, don't go back. As that was a dark place, Dana.
That's a very, very dark place. Like, don't look at them, look at me. Oh God.
For those of you that haven't ever studied theater, the Meisner Technique is interesting.
It's very, very, very interesting. But yeah, like Bjorn said, like really, like I would hope that if you're going to do that, that you know the player that you're targeting well enough to know that they're not gonna like freeze and just like not know what to do and just sort of stall the game. And they'll be willing to jump in at that point and just jump into full RP. I would think.
And if you don't know them as well and you suspect it may work, don't do my aggressive dwarven
don't be aggressive
voice. Have, just a little more and focused. Yes, I think we can come to an arrangements. And that's going to be less terrifying than, Shrek screaming at them. And
although, if as a DM, if you ever have a chance to yell, "Get out of my swamp," you must do it. It will break the immersion at your table for a moment because everyone will be laughing.
It may break some of your players.
Yeah. But they will come back. It will break Dana. It'll take about 10 minutes, but that's a good way to set up a break, which that's a thing that popped into my head that helps with immersion a lot, is your players knowing that you have it in your mind as the DM to, like, all right, and we're going to take a break to get snacks and go to the bathroom and whatnot and come back. So that way you don't have players constantly like, all right, well, I'm not in this part of the session, so I'm going to go pee for a hot second. Like, if you know that you plan for regular bio breaks, like, that can help so much because it's like, all right, I'm in this. I'm here. Absolutely. I'm here. And I don't have to worry about all of these other things. I can just be here in the game.
Yeah. Now that said, if you're not directly involved in the scene happening and you really got to go, I mean, go
absolutely go.
Like nobody wants you to end up with it.
Homer Simpson into that hedge. I'm like, this is not my scene. I'll be back.
But speaking on like player comfort and those things, I think this becomes before all of the buy-in. But I think it helps set the stage to get the buy-in for the immersion, is making sure, we've talked about these before, I'm a huge fan of them, and that is the session 0.
Yep.
Talking to your players before the campaign or adventure, or even having just a quick, like, I don't think before a one-shot, I don't think you need a full session 0, but you need at least some session 0 time. Have 20 to 30 minutes where you're talking to these players, finding out what people's comfort levels are. And you can ask about comfort level in role play. you might get a player who's going to say, whatever you do, please don't yell at me.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. And just don't yell at that player, because that's going to take them out of it. And you're being really uncool to them. And that's not right. And two, you're actually hurting the game for everybody else, because now everyone else draws out because they're worried about this player at the table who got yelled at for no good reason. If your players know you're going to respect their boundaries and you make it clear that, hey, if anything ever gets into an area that you start to not to be uncomfortable with, you can stop everything and we'll pick up from there once it is comfortable. They're going to be more willing to immerse themselves because they know you care about their comfort and safety.
Like that's a particular thing that for the one shot this weekend that I'm crafting out of a one shot that another friend of mine made up in the past. There are particular enemies that used to exist in this that I have changed because I know Bjorn hates this creature.
Yep. They don't exist in my worlds.
And I've specifically taken them out of this one shot because I know that's immediately going to pull Bjorn out, and he hates them.
Yeah, and that's just what you should do as a DM, because the best thing, and again, this is one of the things I love about the D&D books, is all of them continually say you can change any of this. Any of it can be changed. It says that in the player's handbook. It says it in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Like the one thing it does say is, DM's rule is final. And to me, what that just says is, because if people go, well, what if I don't like the DM's rule? I was like, well, find a different DM.
Absolutely.
Or do what I did and become a DM yourself. It's been
please become a DM, because everyone needs more DMs.
Yeah, and honestly, it's been
slide into them DMs.
It's been rewarding for me because I have helped create this story that my players are invested in and they enjoy, and there's no bullshit that they don't want to deal with in this story. I don't go, well, I have to have, these terrible race relations between elves and dwarves because they hate each other because it said so in the 80s. And I go,
that story's been told forever.
I'm like, wow, you're breaking new ground there, aren't you?
See, right now, I'm the content in this story that Dana doesn't want to deal with because of my dumb jokes.
I mean, is what it is at the end of the day.
I mean, it's interesting listening to you both talk about session zeros. I had never, I'll be real honest, there's a lot of things about D&D that I didn't realize were possible. Something that you said, Bjorn, is most everything, while it is the DM's final word, is subject to change. You can change anything. That's why homebrew exists. And I don't think I realized that, not only how okay that is, but how common that can actually be until I started, watching shows like Critical Role or listening to different podcasts from people that I know. Is stuff is flexible, but also just particularly about session zero, I would have to agree. I think that's a really useful tool for not only getting to know your players, but for also getting them into, immersed into the world and into their characters. I don't think I have yet to play a campaign that has utilized the session zero. And it wasn't until I started watching campaign 2 of CR that they were like, oh yeah, we did this in session zero. And I'm like, you can do that? That would have been so helpful for me as a new player, years and years ago. Years ago.
I can definitely say in both, Jordan actually played in both of these, but in the one that's still going now, having our brief session zero we had discussing everything.
Oh, that made everything so much better.
Which led into the first session. We had an extended first session where it was, okay, we're going to do session 0 and session 1 together same day. But then we did the same thing when I ran Curse of Strahd for everyone, because I'm like, okay, this is high Gothic horror, and I made it clear to people. I'm like, this is going to be horror. It's going,
and it sure fucking was.
Yeah, I go, it's going to be violent. It's going to be dark, and it was very important to me to know from everyone, what are your limits? Because I go, I don't want to cross that line. So if you tell me descriptions of blood. I can't handle that. I'm going to have to think about that with the main villain being a vampire. I'm going to have to think about it. So I got to go, okay, how do I describe things differently? If they go, the idea of kidnapping, I can't handle that at all. That's good for me to know because
there are like 3 different storylines that could happen within Strahd where that happens.
Yeah, including one of the main ones.
Yep.
And honestly, if it's, anything that seems, remotely non-consensual at all, I may have said, this is not the campaign for you, because a huge aspect is him coveting his brother's wife and how he wanted to show her that he's ultimately the one she wanted to be with. Like, that, that's as far in that territory as I'm personally willing to go. I won't go into super non-consensual stuff because that's just gross and we don't need that in any storytelling. And frankly, if you're a storyteller and you use that as a crutch for motivation, you're a shitty storyteller.
It's not necessary. It's just not
it's
necessary.
Never necessary. And if that's what you needed to motivate your hero or whatever, man, you suck.
And if that's what you need to motivate your heroes to do a thing, you're not playing a campaign with heroes.
Well, and talking about sucking a player out of the story. Personally speaking, as an AFAB person, I don't need to know that. Like, I don't need that to buy into the story. Like, to me, a lot of the time, that just a lot of those tropes and those plot devices are just seem to glorify the violence of it, and you should be be very, very, I would say, be very, very careful of what kind of violence you choose to have portrayed in there, because and if you do have a player that does not want to relive that trauma, that can pull them right out, and that's the least of your worries then.
You
have somebody who's not doing so great. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, and on that line with Session Zeros, and part of keeping the immersion in is to make sure that everyone's ready for the subject matter of whatever the campaign is, like you said, and even not even in to make sure that people aren't made uncomfortable, but so that their character fits in the world that you're planning to do. With I don't know if you want to spill the beans on the setting-ish for campaign 2 or not, but
I will. It is,
but
it's based in Norse mythology, and I'm using elements of both cyberpunk and steampunk with it. The cyberpunk being
it's gonna be fucking
your
wild,
massive cities that exist on top of these arcane reservoirs. Think Mako energy from Final Fantasy VII. And so you have Magitech running a lot of things, but because technology exists and you get away from these cyberpunk cities, you still need technology in more rural towns. And that's where you're going to see more steampunk type creations. And then as far as the mythos, I'm basing a lot in Norse mythology. I'm Bjorn Anders. I have Norse heritage and I love it and I'm proud of it. And I'm so into Norse myth because so many of them are so cool. I'm going to bring in a couple other well-known ancient religions. We do some Celtic, do some Greek, do some Egyptian, just because those are the polytheistic ancient religions that I can find the most information on and feel like I could represent well. I really wanted to find some East African stuff, but I couldn't find any stuff that I liked. And I went, this is very incomplete and I don't want to represent it poorly. So I just won't worry about that until if I do find it, if you guys explore the whole world, maybe we'll get to that. But yeah, mostly Norse. And there's going to be political and religious oppressive stuff in it. I've told my players, that's going to be in there. This is political. There are going to be some stuff where you're like, hey, this sounds like the Crusades. I'm going to go, because it's the Crusades.
And so for that setting, making sure in that Session 0 that all right, this is going to be pretty Norse, so we're probably going to be in mountainous terrain a lot. So, keeping your character's immersion in, if you're playing a ranger and you're in a campaign like that, to let the ranger know, maybe your favorite terrain shouldn't be desert.
Yeah.
Because just something like that, where my favorite terrain never comes up in this campaign. Yeah, because you picked a desert and we're in the mountains.
Exactly. It's like, will there be a desert? Sure, but you're gonna start a long fucking way from it. So, I mean, that's important that people know what's going on with the whole world and where they fit into it. But yeah, I think wrapping up, the immersion begins before the game begins. It begins in that session 0. Make sure your players know they feel safe, and honestly, give them that X card. I believe the new book that's coming out, Van Ricken's Guide to Ravenloft, I've already read. It has a section on X cards in it, because I read I know we're running over time. I read a beautiful quote today, and it said, when you are, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's when running horror in D&D, your job as a DM is not to scare the players. It's to scare the characters.
Yep. And it's real good.
Yeah, I mean, we watch horror movies for a reason. Like, I love horror, and there are times I've been scared by horror movies, and I love that. But that's because I entered into the social contract by choosing to watch it. I consented to fear.
Yep.
If you have your players consent to emotion, you are free as a DM to play with all those emotions they've consented to, and they'll love you for it when you do it right.
Absolutely. And that's really the biggest piece of keeping your players immersed, is making sure that you know what they're in for, and going all in for what your players are in for, or what your fellow players are in for if you're not the DM. But yeah, so that's the time we've got for this episode this week. Thank you so much for being here with us, Dana.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for your inputs. Like, I love what you had to say.
As we're closing out, Dana, do you have anything that you're doing right now that you want to mention to the world and to the people?
I have 1 month left of my master's program.
Yay.
So I am working on that. I am working on presenting my summary project, and then, as far as we'll know, I will be free. Jobless, but free. Because it's in arts leadership, in the arts nonprofit world. So
if you need someone
to
help,
have I done?
Yeah. So if you need someone to help run your nonprofit, I have there will soon be a new graduate that knows their shit. So
who?
We'll introduce you to them.
You give me their number. I'd like to.
That's the plan.
Yeah, great.
We'll let you guys.
Good night, everybody. No. But as we say at the ends, because of how the internet works, and I hate saying all of these things, but you can catch our show live on Twitch Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, assuming that everything goes well. Also, assuming everything goes well, the episode will air on YouTube at noon the following Saturday. And please do, subscribe, follow, comment, all of those things that I hate asking people to do. But we want that internet money. I want money from our Twitch overlords and from YouTube Daddy. So please do those things. That's the thing I'm saying now. And for those of you that remember, friend of the show, the podcast, The Ugly Radio, the next episode is coming out tomorrow, and I am in the next episode in a section called A Friend Amongst Us. It's great. But that comes out tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. I think that's all the show closing things. Yeah?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Well, Bjorn, what do we always say?
Do something nice for yourself this weekend.